has their win total at 7.5 for this year. They have the 8th toughest schedule. They have a 41% chance to make the postseason, according to ESPN Analytics. But this is the time of year, Dominique Foxworth, where we always talk about who might be the surprise. Because if there's one thing we know about the NFL, it's that we don't know anything about the NFL. Never are the things that we think in August the things that turn out to be true when we get to Thanksgiving. Could you see a scenario where the Giants are a legitimate contender in that tough division and in the NFC?
Well, first of all, Greeny, thank you for calling out that cheating by Darren Waller out here pushing off on defenseless corners. But aside from that, no, I mean, I appreciate that it's a well-coached team and they're getting better, but they're not nearly as talented as the other two, the Cowboys and the Eagles in that division. So in order to win, they're going to have to out-coach everybody every single week. It's really hard to do that continuously. You can outplay people when you have more talent, which the Eagles and the Cowboys have. They also have a better quarterback. Both teams have better quarterbacks. So as good as the Giants, I think, can be, I don't think they're going to be able to knock off either of those two teams. Washington, they got a chance to knock down Sam Howell and the Commanders.
I want to go back to Dan on that thought, but let me get Darlington in here. What do you think, Jeff? The Giants, as far as a legitimate contender, look, there's a team that made the playoffs last year, won a playoff game on the road against a Minnesota team a lot of people didn't love. What do you think?
It makes me a little nervous when we're talking about Darren Waller as being the potential key to this team, only because of availability. The past 2 seasons dealing with the hamstring injury that allowed him to play 9 games. Season before that, 11 games. Look, if they get the 2020 version of Darren Waller, this team can contend because Daniel Jones now has that consistent weapon. But can he stay on the field? It's been a question for Waller the past 2 seasons, and for me, it will continue to be.
Well, look, the question around the Giants forever to that point, however, has been about Daniel Jones. And they answered it for us by giving him the contract over the offseason. But that really, to Neek's point, the Giants' ability to legitimately contend with the Eagles and the Cowboys is going to be, does he take that next step? Does he show that while he was merely good last year, is there another step that he can take to where he becomes something much better than that?
You would think that there's another step. Daniel Jones can't repeat last year and the Giants catch the Philadelphia Eagles and or the Dallas Cowboys.
Right.
He has to take the next step. I've talked about it. The thing they did last year that was so good was they never put him in situations where he had to play in chaos. The protection was great, like this play right here. So they committed to doing that. But to chase those 2 teams down, they have to go and be more explosive. So they have some of those pieces. Let me put it this way. All offseason, we've talked about, well, have the Cowboys caught the Philadelphia Eagles?
Right.
I think the question's a little bit more for me, have the Giants caught the Dallas Cowboys? And I think the Cowboys are a good football team. But I think Daniel Jones does take another step. This is a good offensive line. They've got really good pieces around them. And Neek, as much as I love Nick Sirianni in Philadelphia, I would say that I think the Giants will outcoach basically everybody on their schedule because I have so much faith in Brian Dable, Mike Kafka, and Wink Martindale on defense, who you know way better than I do.
And for the record, Sirianni lost his offensive and defensive coordinators.
It's new for Aaron Rodgers to be in this huddle with these players. It's new for these players to be on the field in a game setting with Aaron. The last time we saw Aaron in a game, he threw an interception versus the Detroit Lions to essentially end the season. So the ideal situation, Aaron in the starting offense goes out there. They find a way to go down the field, get some points. I don't care what kind of points. And then he comes out and everyone feels great. I would say this. If Aaron plays on Saturday, which it looks like he's going to, Mekhi Becton should be playing tackle with him.
Yeah, and Becton played well in the preseason game the other night, which is an important piece of that Jets offensive line. Dominique, good idea or a bad idea for Rodgers to be playing in the preseason?
Yeah, it's definitely a good idea. Not to assume that Aaron Rodgers, he's played as long as he has. He doesn't need preseason games, but he's in a new team with a new situation. I think going out there with the bright lights and going through all the motions of a regular season game is helpful to them. Of course, you're putting him out there, which exposes him to injury, but he's going to play a lot of other games for the rest of the season that are going to expose him to injury. I imagine that they're not going to do any deep 7-step drops or any questionable protections. They're not going to take any risk with Aaron Rodgers. They're just going to let him get in a rhythm, and I think Dan's right. It'd be nice if they score, but I think winning is getting him out there, having a couple successful plays, and not getting him hit is a successful showing for Aaron Rodgers.
I remind everybody that the Jets' early season schedule is tough. They will hit the ground, or they will need to hit the ground running to have any chance at accomplishing what they want this year. They open with Buffalo, which means Von Miller. Then they go to Dallas. That means Micah Parsons. Then they get the Patriots, who last year were third in the league in sacks. Then they get the Chiefs, who were second in the league in sacks. And sitting out there are the Eagles, who almost set the record for most sacks in a regular season last year. So you're looking at a lot of teams that can rush the passer. And I will merely say this, Jeff, if Aaron Rodgers should somehow get hurt in a preseason game before the season even begins, I mean, I won't survive it. I mean, no, people ask me, how will this come?
No.
That can't happen,
Well,
right?
why are you even putting that out there?
Well, because that's the reason to ask the question.
Don't
If
do
there
that.
was no
'Cause he's a
question
Jets
that he
fan.
wasn't
This
going
is
to
what
get hurt, we
Jets
wouldn't be
fans do,
talking
Dan.
about it, right?
Listen, there is a 0%
They
chance
can't. The
that guy's
Jets
gonna
fans
let
can't have
himself
nice
get hurt.
things.
Wait, what?
There's a 0% chance that Aaron Rodgers is going to let himself get hurt. Seth.
Right.
Zero.
Right, zero. Because why? Because what?
He's not going to take the hit.
No hit.
He'll get the ball out, take the ball. I don't care. It's not the regular season.
Right.
He will not get hurt.
No, because I mean, Nick, what? Why
I'm
is this
so
funny?
uncomfortable with this conversation.
Why is this funny? Nick, what? I don't understand.
Yeah, because I mean, I'm scared for you. I wish that it was a 0% chance, but it is a football game, so there is some percentage chance. But if it's going to happen, if he could avoid injuries, maybe last year wouldn't have been as rough as it was last year. You cannot completely avoid injuries in football. I'm not scared about this regular season game. I think when you get up to the age of Aaron Rodgers, I'm just scared anytime you're playing football. And it's not just him you have to worry about. You talked about Mekhi Becton. Yeah, he's an important part to that offensive line, and he also has had trouble staying healthy. So
That's fair.
You don't have to worry about this weekend, but you do have to worry about it all season long.
Jeff?
Oh, stop, Neek. This is just what Jets fans do. You give them nice things, and they just continue to go down this hallway of horror. It's like you just continue to expect the
Find
worst,
ways to be
even
miserable.
when you have been so excited. That's all they do. Pursuit of happiness. They cannot get there. It's unbelievable. You
The
Jets
question
fans are
on
all
the
the
screen is playing Rodgers in the preseason
Yes.
a good idea? Yeah, I'm
Patrick
agreeing.
Mahomes plays a half every preseason.
That's what I mean. So the only reason that there was even any question about it is because there was some threat of injury. I'll just say this in closing. Take me instead. I mean, if anything is going to happen, Aaron, let it I fall off a curb, whatever you want. Hit by a cab, what just
Greeny,
take
you have
me.
to break a sweat.
Take me instead. Listen, I waited 50 years for this. Do not, whatever happens, let it happen to me instead. I am more than willing to take this. I will
I mean,
jump
I could
in
never
front of that.
I could have never imagined what Monday morning get up would be with you with a broken thumb since you wear that.
No problem. I've got my little finger thing. Well, I can't do this show with a paper cut. I am the king of the hyperbole. I am a professional overreactor. I have been accused of that on these and other airways for 30 years here at ESPN right now. So I say this at the risk of being accused of overreacting. That kid's a star. Jordan Love is a star in the making. The development, when you have the luxury, and that's what it was, of letting a really talented kid sit and learn for 3 years in the same offense, and then no one gets fired, you just let him step into that offense, and he has as much raw talent and ability as he clearly does, and you put a pretty good situation. You can't walk into a better situation than Jordan Love is walking into, and he's going to be a terrific player starting immediately in Green Bay. Dominique.
Yeah, I mean, there's no quarterback taken in the first round or at any round in the NFL draft who does not have the talent to succeed. But there are lots of other reasons why I think quarterbacks, they don't succeed. It's sometimes their maturity, it's sometimes the situation around them, sometimes it's the coaching, and sometimes it's just timing. But Jordan Love has had the opportunity to mature emotionally and mentally and also physically as he gets ready for this. And then he walks into what seems like a really, really good roster for a first-year starting quarterback. So I think you're right. He's in a great situation. We're not going to say that he will be the third Hall of Fame quarterback in a row for the Green Bay Packers, but he's certainly got a chance to make them a contender this year.
Yes, we will. Let's just say it. Why not? Let's just go. Come on. Let's just throw caution to the wind. Let's first guess this thing. Go ahead. Cold takes exposed. Where are you? I'm ready for this 8 years from now when I turn out to be wrong. Jeff Darlington, the kid. You were the one who first made me think about this. You came on here a couple of weeks ago, and you were talking about how they're talking in training camp about all the different off-angle throws, the different arm angles and the slots and all that kind of stuff, the Mahomes-y kind of stuff that he is able to do.
Don't say that.
No, again, I'm not comparing him to Patrick Mahomes, but he's got like these kind of freakish traits. You're the one who said it, Darlington.
First of all, don't blame me for this, okay? I bring you this information and now you throw it back in my face? I'm going to be exposed for this now.
Yes.
Listen, but this is the problem here, Greeny, in all seriousness. Matt LaFleur said earlier this offseason that we need to temper expectations for Jordan Love. As we can tell at this very moment, you can throw that out the window. Immediately, the second he shows his potential during preseason, our expectations of what the Packers are capable of will skyrocket. The question here, of course, is will he be ready to be the quarterback we expect him to be in his 4th year? The downside to this is he better be, because if he's not, it's going to be a clear mistake on the part of the Packers. I will say, though, he's looking the part right now.
All right, let me do this in the form of a variety of questions, because Orlovsky, you know what it is to play quarterback, the quarterback position in the National Football League. And some of these guys are in terrible situations. Some of them are good. Very few of them walk into a situation I would describe as this. You are first-round talented. So you are a person who has so much ability that you were drafted in the first round. So put yourself in a position where you're that kind of talented.
Sure.
Now you get drafted to where you get to serve a 3-year apprenticeship under one of the greatest quarterbacks that ever lived, cerebrally and physically. You get to then step into an offense, the same offense that you have been sitting there and watching and studying for 3 years with the same coaching staff and everything else. And you have these 2 young receivers that came in kind of with you, right, that you have been growing with and learning with and all that kind of stuff. Just as quarterback development goes, tell me what that would be like for a young player.
It's comforting because it allows me to get rid of all the things in my game that I need to from my youth and kind of transition into being a pro. So all the things that Jordan Love came out of school and he's super talented, but his feet are all over the place and they're never attached to his arm, and he doesn't necessarily see the concepts the right way with the timing and rhythm of a passing offense. Now he's been able to work all of those warts, those flaws, those kinks out of his game, and then the talent becomes the most important thing that get to be a part of the conversation all the time. So often, and again, this is always individualized. We take the young player, and the talent never is allowed to become the focal point because they never work out all the bad stuff. In Green Bay, they've allowed him that. Now, that's not the case for every guy. I think what we're seeing in Green Bay, Greeny, is why their blueprint is impressive and why they believe in it so much. I understand it's the preseason. I'm aware of that. But if Jordan Love plays in the regular season the way he has in the preseason, San Francisco, Philly, Dallas, they've got another person sitting at the table for the playoffs.
Neek.
Wow.
Yeah, I can't agree with Dan anymore. I think the most important thing about quarterback development is probably everything else around them. In the best case scenario, he's right. You can have a couple years to clean up the small parts of your game and also understand what defenses are doing. They're going to be a lot more complicated in the NFL when the defense doesn't have to go to class during the week. They spend their week preparing ways to confuse you. If you have 2 years, 3 years to sit around and understand and decipher that, you would have seen it all by the time you get a chance to step out there. And like Dan said, you can put all those other things in the back of your mind and let your talent take over. So yeah, the only thing that this team is missing is a quarterback. And if they have one that plays as well as Jordan Love has played so far, then they are a contender in the NFC.
Really, I think most of us came into this season with Green Bay 2 questions. Is Jordan Love any good, and is this defense going to play to its talent level? I feel the first question is getting answered. Jordan Love's going to be a good player. The biggest question right now for me in Green Bay is all that talent on defense going to play up to the talent level that it should? If they do, they're absolutely playoff contenders.
All right, we'll start finding out in 2 weeks. Look at the way the question is specifically phrased. Which one of these would you start a franchise with? 2 of these players were drafted to start a franchise, right? Trey Lance was the 3rd pick in the draft. Sam Darnold was the 3rd pick in the draft. Teams were planning to build their franchise around them. One of them was right here in San Francisco. The one who we're actually giving the job to was the last pick in the entire draft. What does that mean exactly, Dan?
That the player took advantage of the opportunity, and it's a great place to play quarterback in. And Brock Purdy is everything that's important to quarterbacking that is so hard to measure, and the measurables are often not as important. To see him out on the field this past weekend, post the elbow surgery, was great. The movement skills, the decision-making, the ability to drive the football, and the creativity. The question is, can he do it again? Can he do it this year when there are expectations? Last year this time, very few people in the NFL world knew who Brock Purdy was. Now we have the question of who would you start your organization with, and it's a clear-cut Brock Purdy. Kyle Shanahan said it himself a couple weeks ago. It took him 3 games after Brock Purdy to know he was the best quarterback on their roster.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating to watch. It's a great place to go play quarterback, and Brock Purdy's a ideal quarterback for Kyle Shanahan.
Go ahead, Jeff.
I've spent some time around Brock Purdy last season. I covered several of his games. I'm telling you, you line these guys up and you talk to all of them, and after that walk away and say who was drafted where, Brock Purdy has this confidence about him in his demeanor that suggests he was drafted to be a franchise quarterback. He does not, as much as he has the chip on his shoulder by being Mr. Irrelevant, he does not talk like that kind of a player. When you hear Kyle Shanahan talk about him like he is the clear starter, you spend time around Brock Purdy and you understand why. It's not just what he does on the field. I'm telling you, he has a demeanor about him that is very capable of not just being a good quarterback, but a great one.
I think Brock knows he's good, and the other 2 players think they're good. There's doubt. There's scar tissue, certainly for Sam Darnold, and Trey Lance hasn't had the opportunity to do anything on the football field. I think San Francisco's situation is this. Brock Purdy's your starter. He's good enough to win the Super Bowl with. Sam Darnold is your backup quarterback. He's good enough to win the Super Bowl with. And Trey Lance, right now, at least after this past weekend's performance, probably quieted their building just a little bit with some of the concern, but he hasn't done enough to be their number 2 quarterback. Still, that should have been another interception he threw on this past weekend that on a screen pass, it's a bad break, probably not a ton on you, but the ball's not coming out nearly as quickly as it should. He's not as sudden in the pocket and as twitchy in the pocket. Led a nice drive to end that game and had a nice touchdown pass, but he's probably going to be their 3rd quarterback this season.
Look, I mean, the reality of it is this. For as unfortunate as the circumstances of Sam Darnold's early career were, he's had a chance. He had a chance with the Jets. He had a chance with Carolina.
But
Trey Lance has never had a chance to do anything, is the point I'm making, and they gave up a king's ransom to draft him 3rd overall, and he's never – I'm not suggesting they're doing this wrong. They love Brock Purdy. But are we just giving up on Trey Lance? Is that it? He has no career now?
I don't think if you're San Francisco, you're giving up on him necessarily, but you also have a duty to the football team to make sure that number 1 and number 2, that you are capable of winning every game with.
I get it. But what happened? What I'm asking you is what happens to the other kid? He's 23 years old.
I think right now Trey Lance has to be their number 3 quarterback because of what your football team is. If Trey Lance was on Indianapolis and they're not a bona fide contender this year, it's a different conversation. You've seen, I personally just haven't seen the growth that you would expect. I understand he hasn't played a ton, but are you taking a Super Bowl contender and placing him in the hands of a player right now that just is so inconsistent that's got to give you concern?
Neek, final word.
Yeah, I mean, he's 23 years old, but he's even younger than that, it seems like, as a football player. So that's a problem. It's not that he doesn't have the potential to be a great quarterback. He has the athleticism and the arm strength and all the skills to be a great football player, but he's playing like someone who only played a few games in college and was barely getting the experience that he needs. I mean, it seems obvious that what he needs is time. It's hard for us to tell you what he can be or what he's going to be until he actually gets enough time to, like, grow up as an NFL quarterback.
We had a stat last week that 17 quarterbacks in the NFL threw more passes last season than Trey Lance has thrown since high school.
Yeah,
since high school. So, I mean, he just has barely played. I don't know what's going to happen.
And you feel bad for him. It's not his fault.
The kid has Josh Allen-like talent. Now, whether that means he's ever going to be that or not, who knows? But the kid has all the talent in the world. All right. Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.